Okay, good morning, everybody. Today's date is July 23rd, 2021. My name is Leslie Williams. I'm making this video today in order to try and help people understand the extreme criminalities connected to the reported crimes of gang stalking. I'm going to make this video in a way to where I'm suggesting that I'm talking to educated gang stalking victims and educated followers of my exposures online. So if you don't know anything about gang stalking or anything discussed in this particular video, the only thing I can do is tell you to go into the account you're watching this video through. When you look at my videos, you always want to make sure that you look at what's in the descriptions of them, and if you don't see anything in any particular video within the descriptions of those videos, just be patient, okay? Because this crime has got me one of the main goals of this crime is to intentionally, purposely obstruct and disrupt a gang stalking victim's schedule. Okay, so keep that in mind. Alright, now, my fellow American citizens, what I'm going to expose in this video is going to sound, at points within the video, it's going to sound extremely intricate and complex, but I'm going to state it in a way to where, I'm going to state it in layman's terms. And I would suggest that you go back and watch this video too, okay? So that once you start your research pertaining to my descriptions, you can then take the data from the research and then come back and reinforce the conclusions from that research by listening to the statements. So you can kind of integrate those statements in with the data from the research. Hold on. I'm going to fly right into the subject matter right now. And remember, trust me, this is extremely relevant, and make no mistake about it. You just need, so let me go ahead and dive right into the purpose of this video. Hold on 1 second though, I gotta get something out here to prop up my other phone that I'm going to be using for presentation purposes. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in this video is just discuss a couple things with you really fast, so that it can be used as a at least part of these statements can be used as a foundation concerning the subject matter. Okay, so in gang stalking crimes, brain entrainment is one of the biggest sub-motives connected to the original motives of why the victim is picked to begin with. Brain entrainment happens to, I'd say, 99.8% of all gang stalking victims at some point within the targeting process of them being intentionally criminally put in these programs. So I have massively exposed brain entrainment concerning how it can occur. Alright, hold on 1 second. Concerning how it can occur, and concerning the motivations behind it, and so on. And my descriptions and explanations are described in layman's terms. I state that because I don't believe my viewers are not intelligent. I state that because the vast majority of the psychological operations and the motives for them are so complex, where this program, including all of its psychological operations, were literally created by and through neuroscientists, neuropsychologists. You just would not believe the extreme sophistication concerning neurology, neuropsychology, neuroforensics, neuropathology disciplines, that if you were to get real technical and use medical language, then the person would be spending a lot, then the person viewing the exposures would spend a lot of time, excuse me please, dissecting the meanings of these terms in order to be able to then incorporate it within their conclusions based on the subject matters disclosed that describe them. So I try to break it all down and explain it in simple forms in order to avoid all that time-consuming additional work that you would have to do if I got extremely technical. Trust me when I say this, oh my gosh. Alright, so let me go ahead. Alright, now, one of the main reported crimes of gang stalking is where gang stalking victims are reported to endure massive, identical, repeated harassment, identical, repeated types of actions. And the harassment is perpetrated through actions, because in order to achieve visual and auditory brain entrainment, the victim has to be forced to see whatever they're forced to see and or hear through their sight and their hearing processes. And what is propped up is basically the construct of this crime related to the specific aspect of it, so that the victim's thoughts and emotions can be steered into a specific direction in order to induce the type of mental and emotional response that they're attempting to create, that it becomes part of the brain entrainment of neural pathways and neural networks, meaning that they're intentionally trying to force the victim into a specific thought pattern and a specific emotional pattern based on the experience. Okay. Erwin Cameron, who was the head of the Psychiatric Association in Canada and in America back in the 50s and 60s, he employed a technique that's called psychic driving. Psychic being an abbreviation for the word psychology. In psychology, a huge aspect of the discipline of the field of psychology has to do with the thinking and behavioral processes of human beings and animals. So the psychic of psychic driving stands for psychology, breaking that down further into the methodologies and techniques used to achieve the goals he was attempting to achieve, which was brain patternization for neural entrainment and repatternization. Well, that's exactly what's going on in gang stalking crimes. In fact, Dr. Erwin Cameron is massively, his name is spelled, I believe, E-R-W-I-N, Cameron. Just research him to CIA mind control at Google and YouTube. And research the term psychic driving. So, all right, now hold on a second, I got a burp. Excuse me. So, one of the main reported crimes happening in gang stalking is where the victim's perceptions are being intentionally manipulated by and through the intentionally propped up acts and methodologies and techniques that they want to force the victim to see and hear. So, when you go to Google and you type in the sensitization technique, the dark neural linguistic programming, DNLP, and the direct conversation method, three of many methods, but those are some of the three main ones, you will witness, if I burp, let me just say I got a blanket, excuse me. Okay, so, when you research at Google and YouTube, these specific three descriptions of three identified techniques of this crime and the methods and how they're achieved, you'll understand how easy it is to anchor a stimuli within a person's mind and create a negative association to it. Is classical conditioning in psychology terms, and even operant conditioning, so that when the victim notices it, the victim is forced to experience a very short amount of natural responses, meaning that there's only a certain amount of responses that you're going to have to a specific type of abuse. Gang stalking intentionally creates negative associations between the act and the victim, so that when the act is repeated, it will trigger the same response. And then that's how the entrainment takes place and the reinforcement of what's entrained. Okay, so just like if you're training a dog to not pee on the carpet, and when he pees on the carpet, you might take his face and bring it very close to the urine on the carpet, and then spank the dog, obviously not in an abusive way, so that dog will learn that there's a negative reinforcement to that act. Well, that's entrainment. Just like you're training a dog. Entrainment, training a dog, training a human being how to make a pizza, how to ride a bike, and so on. When we become entrained to something, the brain remembers it. And since gang stalking intention creates negative associations to the stimuli, which are part of the entrainment, it's a huge part of it, that way they know the brain is going to remember it, the stimuli. So therefore, when the stimuli is repropped up, it triggers the potentiated frequency output frequency, the potentiated frequency of the entrained pathway to fire, which then causes the brainwave form that is the entrainment to be intentionally reprocessed in the victim's brain in a neural loop. Just a fast case in point concerning that. Say you get married on June 1st, 1980, and your wedding song is Endless Love. Then on any date 20 years later, when you get in your car and you turn on your radio and Endless Love comes on, your brain is going to immediately recognize that because that's got a positive association, and it's going to stimulate residual visual memories of your wedding day, because that's got a positive association to it. And so 20 years down the road, when that person hears that song, the visual images of their wedding day is going to be immediately stimulated in the brain and reprocessed in it. Well, so that's what gang stalking does. It creates memory references to negative actions and negative stimuli that's intentionally created in the victim's mind initially, so that it can become anchored, so that when the stimuli is represented, it will stimulate the response, the memory reference, and any associated thinking responses and emotion responses that were attached to the original, to the anchor, when the anchor was anchored in the victim's mind. So let me proceed forward. Now, I'm going to show you something here. This right here is a YouTube video concerning the Minority Report, which is a movie with Tom Cruise. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to rewind it just a little bit so you can see something in it. And hopefully it will play with no problems. Now, what is going on in this particular trailer and in the movie, The Minority Report, is that these two girls, they call precogs, what they do is they're clairvoyant. And supposedly they see the future and are able to determine when somebody is going to commit a murder. It's called pre-crime. By the way, you should also research non-consensual human experimentation in gang stalking when it comes to pre-crime. All right, now hold on a second. All right, so now all of a sudden, okay, so here we go. Now, in this movie, as a result of these two girls being able to clairvoyantly see the future concerning when somebody's going to commit a murder, they're hooked up, their brains are hooked up to, just hear me out, their brains are hooked up to these electrodes. And so whenever they see the murder taking place in the future, those visual images from their visual cortex gets transferred to a computer screen. And then Tom Cruise takes segments of those memories, those visual memories, and tries to dissect who's playing a role in the murder and where it's taking place at, so he can then go and stop it before it occurs, which is why it's called pre-crime. So let me just show you this real fast.
To chase me from 20th Century Fox. You sent me.
Okay, all right, now hold on one second. Okay.
I'm placing you under arrest for future murder.
Okay, so watch this real fast.
Okay, Jad, what's coming? Double homicide, one male, one female. Killer's male, white, 40s. Set up a perimeter and tell them we're on route.
Okay, so what he was doing right there was that he was taking the visual images that were transferred to the computer from the precog's minds, so he could translate the visual images in order to see if he could get any data from them that would help him discover where the place, where the murder is supposed to take place at, in order to then go get ahead, in order to go stop it before it occurs. Now, hold on one second. Now, when you go to Google and YouTube and you type in remote neural monitoring and gang stalking, you're going to be able to see that remote neural monitoring, where they monitor a gang stalking victim remotely.
Okay, listen up. Selling our place.
Neurally remotely from a distance. As a direct result, they're able to monitor all features and functions of the brain's neurological processes, the central nervous system, and all biological functions, especially if that gang stalking victim has any implants in them, including multiple implants. Research all my descriptions, baby cakes, because when you do, your mind is going to be absolutely and thoroughly blown. So what I'm going to do right now, as soon as this commercial stops playing in this particular trailer, is I'm going to show you aspects from it. So give me a second here. Unfortunately, I got to wait until the commercial starts. Okay, now this is a movie clip from the movie The Manchurian Candidate. There's two movies. You want to watch the one with Denzel Washington that was made in 2004. Now, in this particular movie, let me go ahead and play the clip.
Take the edge off.
The edge off of what?
Getting clarity, or whatever you want to call it. ECT not being the precise science that, say, leeching is.
You don't think this is gonna work?
Now, here's the first point I want to make. Did you just see those 3 white things, electrode-type things, were on Denzel Washington's forehead? When you go back to the Minority Report, look at what you see at the very beginning. Bringing that back up. Look at what you see at the beginning there. Okay, she had this thing
Jad,
over
what's
her
coming?
head.
Double homicide. One.
And basically, when you go to Google and you type in right and left temple,
I'm putting
when you type in the right and left temple of a human being concerning their specific brain functions, that has to do with two of the main things has to do with auditorial processing, okay, and memories. So when you research remote neural monitoring and memory mapping and memory stimulation, and the fact that they can literally memory map your memories from a remote distance and visually see them, the visual memories on their monitors, okay? Now, that could also be assisted by and through any type of neurological implants within the gang stalking victim. Trust me, baby cakes, your mind's going to be blown when you do the research. So, when you watch the movie The Minority Report, you're going to see electrodes on the precogs, the 2 women that process the in real time future murder of people, who then Tom Cruise goes to try and stop. Okay, they're transferred from their heads onto a monitor, and then Tom Cruise tries to decipher the images so he can get enough data from it in order to go and stop the crime before it occurs. Well, when you see this movie, this trailer here, The Manchurian Candidate, the movie with Denzel Washington, and you better watch that movie too. Let me play the trailer.
doing a cocktail of methylhexanol to take the edge off.
The edge off of what?
Getting clarity, or whatever you want to call it. ECT not being the precise science that, say, leeching is.
You don't think this is gonna work?
It's a desperation move, man. But hey, there's a school of thought says a victim of induced abreaction.
Here he comes.
Yeah, what he's doing right now is he's literally electrically shocking the brain in order to stimulate memories. You should also research gang stalking and electrical shocks, brain stimulation through remote neural monitoring. And here are the memories. Oh, and by the way, if you go back, now bring this video up, because what you just got done seeing him do was stimulate both the right and left temples of Denzel Washington. And your right and left temples are dedicated, 2 of the main features of them are dedicated to auditorial processing and visual memories. Now, so let me go back and show you that again here real fast. What this guy does after he puts this in Denzel Washington's mouth, he gave him a shot to make him go to sleep. Then he put this in his mouth so he wouldn't swallow his tongue. And then he takes these electrodes and he places them on the right and left temple. And then there we go, the memories start. His brain is being stimulated to retrieve the memories of what happened to Denzel Washington. Now, when the memory starts to process, you're going to hear identical, repeated auditorial statements that are attached to the memory. So what's happening here is that the brain is processing fragments of memories connected to when he got abducted and taken to a place. Now, when you watch this movie, The Manchurian Candidate, you want to take notes of all parts of the movie where Denzel Washington and 3 or 4 other soldiers were taken to a lab, I guess on an island, and they were hooked up, their brains were literally hooked up through electrodes. As they were hooked up through electrodes, because the electrodes, what they were doing was they were put, and implants, they were put in the brain and on the scalp that are around the scalp to dedicated, on the places where specific brain functions process information, visual and auditorial. So when you watch this movie, and you better watch it, The Manchurian Candidate with Denzel Washington, made in 2004, you're going to see these 4 soldiers in a room as they're hooked up to these electrodes, and as they're being forced to witness a lot of bizarre, very contrasting images and dialogue. Now, what's one of the 2 main things that are occurring to gang stalking victims? Through remote neural monitoring, their audio cortex is hacked. It's massively reported that they're forced to endure identical repetition through what? Through what? Gang stalking and voice to skull. And remember a minute ago when I talked to you about Erwin Cameron? He used to take his patients on psychiatric floors in Canada and in America, and he would force them, and some of them he even induced into a coma. And so while they were awake and when they were asleep and when they were in a coma, he would force them to listen to non-stop, identical, repeated statements, words, and phrases, and short statements. Identical in a loop fashion. So, meaning that you could tape record something for 7 hours where everything you hear through it is nothing but identical, repeated loop statements, words, phrases, sections of songs, and so on. Okay, now that's done for auditorial processing. The way he was doing it, he was supposedly using the excuse of trying to cure schizophrenia, but actually what he was doing was inducing it. Okay, because whenever the brain is forced to process anything that is identical, your brain's gonna create what is known as an auditorial. If it's sound, it's including words and phrases, it's gonna create an auditorial entrained loop, LOOP pathway. Okay, if the statements are negative in nature, then the brain will also stimulate emotions concerning it, concerning the theme of what's said. Like if somebody calls you a bitch and you hear it nonstop, okay, well, your brain is not only going to create an auditorial and trained looped pathway, but it's also going to be attached to specific emotional responses like hate, anger, okay, fear, and so on. So that's what Erwin Cameron did. And when you go to Google and YouTube, you're literally going to see massive exposures concerning this. It was called repatternization of the brain. Well, why are gang stalking victims propping up people along my routes to repeat gang stalk, oh my God, and suck dick and suck my dick? Okay? Why is it that gang stalking victims are reporting that they're experiencing nonstop identical loop statements, critical statements, demeaning statements, negative words and phrases, statements of abuse, statements that have to do with old abuse that they perpetrated physically towards the victim? Okay, look at that right there. It says some targeted individuals believe the voices and insults are coming from, and then you got to click on the article to read it. Okay, proceed with non-stop voice to skull. So it's basically the same technique, just using sound tech for it. Therefore, when the brain hears it, it creates an auditory entrained pathway. A looped pathway, where it's just a pathway that is looped over and over and over again and reinforced by and through the identical repetition of it. Well, they're doing the same thing concerning using physical people. Concerning me, oh, well, let me just put it to you this way. I'm at least enduring this through physical people along my routes. So what you want to do is you want to go to YouTube search box and you want to type in, hold on one second, I'm going to bring it up here in a second, which is what I'm trying to do right now. So one of the things I've been doing, this is going to be a 2-part video series. So when you get to when you see this video within the YouTube channel you're watching this in, look for another video that was uploaded on the same date, which will be today's date, July 23rd, 2021, as long as I'm allowed to upload it, because these little sick satanic rats, okay? And by the way, all these are my videos right here. All these are other videos of mine as well, okay? So literally, so I'm going to literally show you this just here for a second, so you can snap screenshot what you see. All these videos right here, 99% of them are additional videos of me experiencing identical to a T gang stalking, propped up verbal harassment along all my routes, caught on 8,700 audio files, non-stop being said. Make sure when you bring this playlist up by typing in its title, which is that right there in the uppercase letters. Make sure that you read what's in the description, and then watch the videos and listen for what you see described in the description in the background of the background, okay, of each video's exposure concerning the videos that are exposed and it being caught on my tape recorder and on video. Okay, they're literally propping up people to get along my routes to repeat the same exact identical crap. Gang stalk, oh my god, suck dick, gang stalk, oh my god. Okay, I'm going to literally prove it to you. Okay, so you just heard a girl say suck dick. This is on UCSD property in 2013. Now, when this video starts, because I'm rewinding it right now, as long as it will go back to the beginning, this video is only 48 seconds long, and as soon as I press play, before it gets to 0.01, you're going to hear a woman in the background say suck dick, and then a guy says gang stalk right after it, and then I say in my tape recorder, let's see if you hear a gang stalk, and then it was non-stop repeatedly said. Okay, so listen carefully, because as soon as I press play, you're going to hear a woman say suck dick. Then you're going to hear a guy say gang stalk. Let me turn it up. Okay, so you ready? And here's its title. Okay, so you ready? I'm pressing play right now. Okay, so you hear suck dick and gang stalk said twice before I say, let's see if you hear gang stalk. That's me talking into my tape recorder. So, my fellow American citizens, now, what is one of the main reasons why I decided to make this video? Well, when you look at the fact that it's reported in gang stalking crimes that these filthy satanic whores, these mass murdering, wild raping animals who host this crime, law enforcement agencies are identified as being one of the main implicated hosts, working in cooperation with alphabet agencies, all U.S. intelligence agencies, and corporations, and many others. That's the gang of gang stalking. The stalking of gang stalking is illegal tracking, illegal criminal surveillance, including remote neural monitoring. Okay, if it's being used on the specific victims, and it is reported to be used on hundreds of thousands of victims, tens of thousands of those are online reporting this crime daily. Now, so let me show you something here. In the movie The Manchurian Candidate, Denzel Washington and the other captured, kidnapped 3 or 4 soldiers that were kidnapped with him were taken to a place, and they had these electrodes placed on their brain, because your brain, specific areas of your brain, are dedicated to specific functions and features and functions. Your right and left temple play a huge role in what's processed auditorily and concerning your memories. Your very back part of your brain, the left and right cranium, the very back part of your brain is dedicated to visual, plays a role as concerning visual processing. Now, when you research at Google and YouTube how gang stalking victims are reporting that their right and left temples are being attacked, okay, and their right and left back craniums are being attacked, what's one of the biggest things propped up through the community-based harassment connected to gang stalking? Verbal. Hold on one second. Verbal and verbal, which is also auditorial, concerning identical words and phrases being repeated and identical sounds. That's verbal. That's auditorial entrainment. I'm sorry. That's auditorial for auditory entrainment. They are also reporting people being propped up to engage in specific physical acts for the victim to see. That's visual anchoring for visual entrainment. Now, again, part of your visual processing of the brain is dedicated to your right and left cranium in the back of your head, at the very bottom of the back of the base back of your head. And auditorial is assisted in processing is assisted by and through the features and functions of the brain that are located by the right and left temple. So when you watch the movie The Manchurian Candidate with Denzel Washington, and you see those soldiers hooked up to these electrodes as they're forced to see and hear what? Contrasting statements. Contrasting visual images. Okay, now remember, this is going to be a 2-part video series, so when I start reaching the 33-minute mark, I'm going to start making some statements at around 33 minutes and 8 seconds that I'm going to start segueing into a second video, because this video, that's just the way this phone works, so just bear with me, because that's coming up. I'm about 2.5 minutes away from it right now. So in the Manchurian Movie Candidate, they're forced to see contrasting things. And I'm going to repeat this at the beginning of the second video. So, now, concerning this currently discussed dialogue. So, in the movie, they're forced to see a guy, Sergeant Shaw, commit murder while they're being told verbally that Sergeant Shaw is a nice guy and that he's a hero. So, they're being forced to see opposing things. They're being forced to see Sergeant Shaw. Denzel Washington is being forced to see Sergeant Shaw commit a murder right before his eyes against another abducted soldier, while repeated statements are being made that Sergeant Shaw is a wonderful man and that he's a hero and that he's the greatest man ever alive. Okay? So what you're witnessing as you watch that movie is you're going to be seeing that what Denzel Washington is forced to see Sergeant Shaw do, murder one of his fellow soldiers, he's being told the opposite, that Sergeant Shaw is a wonderful, a guy that is a hero, and all these positive statements about the same person that Denzel Washington is seeing him murder a fellow soldier of his. So that's contrasting information. So the brain is going to create what is known as an interference signal, because the brain is being brought to confusion. What is confusion? Confusion means is where the brain, at the conscious, the unconscious, the subconscious, the preconscious, and the conscious layers of the brain, is being forced to see things that don't make sense. Therefore, all related data to whatever the brain is processing that then confuses the person, what it does is that it creates the neural processes become fused. The neural pathways that is processing the information that is contrasting. So I'm going to explain this more in depth in the second video, which I'm about ready to approach here in the next 35 seconds. So when you bring the next video up, I'm going to backtrack on these latter statements in the video here for about 1.5 minutes. Okay? So, I'll be saying this is the second video made on July 23rd, 2021 at the beginning of it, so you'll know you're in the right video in case I don't get to title it right away. Okay, so I'm approaching that now. So, at 33 minutes and 8-9 seconds is when it will start.